got word from Afghanistan. Everyone at the Soviet base camp's dead. No sign of fighting. Parasites. Skullface's men then headed north. The target is OKB-0. That's where he'll activate Sahelanthropus. Unless we stop him, he'll go down in history a conquering victor. We can't let that happen. Wipe him out. Don't leave any trace of his existence.
I'm gonna need backup on this one.
You'll rendezvous on site.
To be continued on next stream. Because it's about the time that I usually end my streams. So I'll check the cassette tapes and see if they're short.
Boss, about Eli. No matter how many times we talk to him, he just won't listen. He sees everything in terms of victory or defeat and still won't accept that you beat him. We're gonna have to put him in his place. Again. If you don't mind, come back to Mother Base and go another round with him.
Oh my god, there's so many cassettes. Wish I could see them without all these updates in the way. Oh, there's a lot here. Oh, Jesus. Okay, it shouldn't take too long.
About the pathogen spreading through Mother Base. You've seen everything we've got on the outbreak. What's your opinion?
Textbook symptoms of vocal cord parasite.
Actually, tell you what, I want to listen to them while I'm messing around on Mother Base so I can actually do something while we're listening to these. Yeah, there's a lot of them in there. I gotta turn on my fan real quick. Sorry for the noise, but... Oh?
Ngezaba, tatana mono, intangu yandi ivandaka ke salanamin. Ke salaka, tatanange mingi. Eli lorula mono, muzolaka vekutuba. Ukisina uge bigi laka mono. Ukisina uge bigi laka mono.
Tepe, Eli, what's the matter? Fighting will get you nowhere, Eli. Cut it out, kid. That ain't a toy. Eli.
Don't call me that! I'm not a kid. You hear me?
Enough.
the battlefield, they use one another's nom de guerre. But here, we insist they use their real names. That hasn't sat too well with Eli. Or should I say, Unyoka Ya Mbembe. He thinks his boys are letting us grown-ups walk all over him.
Okay. You may have noticed, there's quite a few references to the book. I don't remember who the writer was, but Lord of the Flies. And if you've never read it, it's basically, or just like if you've never heard of it before, because I'm pretty sure they made
Welcome home, boss.
a few films about it. But essentially these group of kids are in like a plane crash or something, and they end up on this island. And they all start making their own rules because they're like, hey, there's no adults to tell us what to do. So they come up with their own rules, and eventually they start going insane. Like, they just basically turn into savages. And the one thing that they use is the conch shell that they blow, and they use it as like a horn. And it's like whoever has the conch shell is like the leader. So you can see Eli, he has a conch shell on his, hanging off his leg there. And then also when you go to meet him, there's at some point in the book, they start, they like make this like deity of their own called like the Lord of the Flies. And it's basically a pig's head on a stick, and it has a bunch of flies around it. And so I don't know if you guys remember, but when I went to go fight Eli the first time, you meet up with him. Let me head to the R&D platform, actually. Go do that. But, there's a pig's head on like a plate in his room. So there's some more references to it. But yeah. I'm basically telling you about the Lord of the Flies stuff because it's gonna start coming up more. There'll be more references to it, so I'm just kind of putting it in your brain so that you can notice them. But yeah, I'm gonna go do this mission, and then we'll listen to all these goddamn cassette tapes while I futz around on Mother Base, raising morale and stuff. So I'm gonna go do this. It's like the whole reason that I wanted to start doing the like listen to cassette tapes the moment I get them is so there wouldn't be. It's happened twice already on the MGS5 streams where I've spent like half an hour or so just doing nothing but listening to cassette tapes, and it got really boring because I never listened to any of them, and so I just listened to them in bulk so everybody could get them, because they are important and I want people to like hear what's on them. But it's like I'm trying to prevent having to listen to them in bulk, and then it just dropped 12 of them on me at once. So the game just stopped me from like preventing it. So I guess we're just gonna have to deal with it. Whoa. Holy fuck. Just dropped down like that. It was weird. Alright, Eli wants round 2. So let's do it, I guess.
Select the mission as soon as you're prepared. We're ready when you are.
Just get rid of this marker. Alright, boy. The thing about these missions is you actually kind of have to be stealthy in them. Freaking fire. God damn it, kid! Got him with one of them bionic arm punches. Shit, where did he go? Oh, that like hissing sound stopping was weird.
Finally accepted that he lost. Hopefully now he'll be a bit more obedient.
Yep, now they have the conch shell. I can get a Fulton upgrade that allows me to extract children. Okay. Now for the cassette tape dump. I hate to have to do this, but the game is forcing me.
About the pathogen spreading through Mother Base. You've seen everything we've got on the outbreak. What's your opinion?
Textbook symptoms of vocal cord parasite infestation. And judging from this casualty list, it is the Kikongo strain, meaning a breed of parasite that triggers symptoms upon detecting pronunciation specific to Kikongo.
So our Kikongo-speaking staff are at risk.
Quite so.
He's right. All the victims do speak Kikongo.
So they could survive if they just used another language.
There is no guarantee. You're only dealing with the Kikongo strain. Other language strains may be present. You well know he was teaching them languages from all over the world.
The Devil's House. Nzoya Badia Bulu.
There is no way to know how many strains he has at his disposal.
So how do we keep them from becoming symptomatic? You mentioned using microbes.
Use this. A type of Wolbachia. Introduced to a sample of the parasite.
Wolbachia.
A parasitic bacteria that colonizes the parasites, turning male to female and preventing copulation. You must cultivate more. What have you done with the infected bodies?
Cremated to stop the spread of infection. But we did keep a few for study.
Good. Take this sample, grind it to a pulp, and introduce it to the larvae now nesting in the dead. The Wolbachia will multiply rapidly within those larvae.
They're soldiers, not some petri dish.
Conventional cultivation methods will take too long. Extract the Wolbachia from those larvae and vaccinate your men. Kikongo speakers first. This is the fastest, surest way. No one is to speak a word of Kikongo until the Wolbachia are safely inside them. I will instruct your medical staff in detail on site. You have the appropriate facilities.
Yes, but
do not worry. I made a pact with your Bete Holone on the honor of the Dene. I speak no lies.
keep an eye on him.
Will do. Follow me. I'll take you to the medical team.
Now, we must wait for the Wolbachia to multiply in the larvae.
How is the disease transmitted? If it's carried by insects or rodents, then...
There is no intermediate host.
So...
The vocal cord parasites lay their eggs in the larynx of the host. Most hatch and migrate to the lungs, but some are transported to the mouth through ciliary movement, mixing in with saliva.
Saliva. Droplet transmission.
Sneezing, coughing. Any food or water containing infected saliva. It would spread fast.
Indeed. And when the larvae migrate to the lungs, symptoms can resemble the early stages of a cold, making it easy to infect others.
Meaning a simple conversation would be enough to pass it on.
Alright, so what happens after the larvae migrate to the lungs?
It is as I said before. They mature by feeding on alveolar tissue. It is only then that noticeable symptoms appear in the host.
And by that point, it's too late. He's infected everyone else. It's one hell of a weapon you've created.
God damn it. Ugh.
Hey, quit kidding around. Snake?
I hit triangle to land on the... or to grab onto the pipe thing, but no. Snake decided it'd be better if he just jumped right off to his doom. Please don't tell me I have to... Okay, thank God. Also, I guess now since the cassette tapes are off for the moment, because I died, it'd be a good time to talk about how, Code Talker is called that, because if you don't know, during World War II, the Americans needed some kind of a cipher to transmit secret messages.
Welcome back.
And so they used the Navajo language because it's an almost completely unknown language. Only the Navajo people use it. They have some words. I don't think there is a proper English translation for it. Excuse me. But, I mean, there is for some, but for a lot of the language, there's no English translation for it. So they used it to... They basically took random words to mean other shit. So, like, they would take the word for, say, milk, and it would mean, like, a battleship or something. Like, it was a completely it was just completely undecipherable. So that's why he's called Code Talker, because he speaks Navajo. So that's what all the words he's saying are, like Dine and the Bidze Holoni. And I think I remember seeing on the subreddit someone tried translating some of it. Dine, I'm pretty sure, just means people. The Bidze Holoni means horned demon. So when he says that, he's referring to Big Boss here. And he says the, like, Hosho or something, Hojo, and I think that just means leader. And I think whenever he says that, he's referring to Skullface. So yeah. Okay.
Now, we must wait for the wall back.
Wait.
About you've seen
Good. Take this sample, the Wolbachia. Their soldiers couldn't... know what I will... You have the... Yes, do not worry. I made a pact with your bit de Holone on the honor of the Dine. I speak no lies.
keep an eye on him. Will do. Follow me. I'll take you to the medical team.
Now, we must wait for the Wolbachia to multiply in the larvae.
How is the disease transmitted? If it's carried by insects or rodents, then...
There is no intermediate...
Sneezing, it was
Indeed, symptom.
meaning a sip.
Alright, so what happens after the larvae migrate to the lungs? It is as I said before. They mature by feeding on alveolar tissue. It is only then that noticeable symptoms appear in the host.
And by that point, it's too late. He's infected everyone else. It's one hell of a weapon you've created.
That is what Blagana wanted.
Bilagana.
Spread easily.
Pretty sure is Skullface. I think Hojo. Yeah, Hojo means leader. Bilagana. I don't know.
He's not the reason. But we will discuss that
Whatever supplies you need.
another
Just let us know,
time.
boss.
The Wolbachia have multiplied. We're preparing to extract them and begin vaccinating. But is this really the only way? Sure, it'll prevent infection, but the cost?
You would rather remove their vocal cords?
No. Tactical communication's the linchpin of what we do.
What if we were to ban the use of Kakongo?
Insufficient. First, there's no guarantee that only the Kikongo strain is here. Second, there is the matter of how the parasites lay their eggs. Before they can copulate, they must be exposed to the pronunciation of a specific language for a period of time, like a container filling with water. But the duration between when the container is full and when the copulation actually begins varies from case to case. In other words, even if the infected stop speaking as a countermeasure, it may already be too late. The only true solution is to prevent copulation through the Wolbachia, or by physically removing the affected tissue.
Do any antiparasitics work?
It sounds as though you have already tried.
Yeah. We tried everyone there is, and nothing.
I have yet to find a medicine that can remove the parasites. At best, it temporarily covers their ears.
Why is that?
Because the parasites are companions to us. To remove them inevitably harms the host.
Companions.
More than you think. And this is why the human immune system cannot eliminate them.
Time for pseudoscience. Oh, I guess while it's on my mind, I was going to mention earlier, I'm pretty sure I may have explained it, but just as a refresher, when Huey mentioned the Soviet philosophers, basically in MGS3, the philosophers, they're basically the Illuminati. They're like a secret organization of all different countries, and they control world events. And MGS3 was about obtaining the Philosopher's Legacy, which was like a huge sum of money, like billions of dollars. But yeah, so the Philosophers, they're pretty much this game's equivalent of the Illuminati. So, okay, next cassette. God, I hate to do this, but the game has forced my hand.
We've inoculated the staff with Walbachia to keep them from becoming symptomatic.
That should also contain the infection.
How did this happen in the first place?
It has to have been a Cypher spy within our ranks.
If this is so, then why the Kikongo strain? If their intent was to wipe you out,
Skullface said the remaining English parasite was close to the boss. If this latest strain was his doing, he wouldn't have tipped his hand.
it is possible someone brought eggs onto the base without knowing. Stuck to their shoes, clothing.
Now that makes the most sense to me.
And where did the eggs come from?
You mentioned that your boss visited Nzoya Badiopulu.
Sure, but his gear's disinfected immediately upon return.
Then he was not the carrier.
And not just the boss. All staff dispatched to high-risk regions were quarantined on the flight back. When the symptoms first appeared, we checked and disinfected all equipment used up to that point. Any and all prisoners, soldiers, materials, and animals extracted during missions were also quarantined.
So, that just leaves...
I have seen children around here.
The African children.
Where are they from?
All over. Some were being held hostage at a mine. Then there were the troublemakers at Bwala Yamasa.
Bwala Yamasa.
Yeah.
Their clothes, their things. Did you burn them?
They're just kids. We couldn't. And besides, not one of them's shown symptoms.
The parasites don't infect prepubescent hosts. Their vocal cords are not fully developed.
Well, if infection doesn't occur in children...
It is possible they carried eggs on their clothes, and the infection spread from them.
Check the kid's stuff.
I doubt there is any trace left by now.
But if there is, some of those kids must be close to hitting puberty. How could we have missed this?
The name Bwala Yamasa got quite a reaction from. I'm guessing the Kikongo strain was released in that village.
Cypher used that region to experiment with vocal cord parasite transmission. The Kikongo strain. The settlements around the refinery upstream of Bwala Yamasa were the proving grounds. They would infect one villager and record transmission speed. Dangerous work. If they failed to contain the infection, it would slip into the surrounding regions.
At which point the world found out about the parasites, making them useless as a weapon. Incredible they'd risk such a thing.
The test site was densely populated too. A terrible place for such experiments. No doubt, they thought burning everything would wipe away all traces. The settlements were covered in oil anyway. Who would wonder if one day they caught fire? And so it did. They burned it all. Living and dead.
Those remains.
But they miscalculated. Transmission speed was far faster than anticipated. It may have been the temperature, or hygiene standards, or perhaps the parasites reacted quickly to Kikongo. Whatever the reason, nearly all villages were swiftly infected, and the settlements reduced to mounds of corpses.
Oh, Jesus. Scared the shit out of me.
The dry season was ending.
Sound.
Time to burn the village. The Moneni River had swelled. Many of the bodies were waterlogged.
Meaning they didn't burn completely.
The corpses still contained viable eggs, and the larvae washed downstream. And when the people downstream drank that water,
That marked the end for Bwala Yamasa.
I learned all of this at the mansion. I warned him of the risk of eggs getting out.
And?
We are prepared for any eventuality.
I get it. putting the oil field back online. The oil leaks, saner. They plan to pollute the river, prevent the spread of infection.
But the oil flow was stopped, and downstream the people of Massa Village started using the water again. The PF soldiers deployed at the village were locals, spoke Kikongo. They were infected, and the kids survived.
I've heard enough.
And who stopped the flow of oil?
Don't.
We did.
That confirms it. The source of the Kikongo strain infection was Massa Village. And the children brought it here. It is no one's fault. There is no blame to be cast.
The parasites, they were tested in other regions?
Their physiology requires that they be tested under varied conditions. Another test site was in Afghanistan.
So it was the parasites there.
Both the Pashto and Tajik languages are spoken in the mountains of Afghanistan, and population density is low. Ideal testing grounds for how accurately the parasites target only the specified language. It is also relatively easy to prevent the spread of infection.
And the results?
The first test, I am told, was a success. Once the Pashtun Mujahideen were infected with the Pashto strain, they were all but wiped out.
The Hamid fighters at Smasei Fort.
It was doubly successful. No Tajik Mujahideen was soldiers.
As a reminder, since it's been a while, what they're talking about is, if you remember the one mission where they were escorting this old guy from the palace up to the Yaku Obo supply outpost, he mentions how his entire village was burned to the ground while he was away. So that's what they're talking about here. I guess they tested the parasites at that guy's village, and of course they burned it to try and remove any trace. So yeah, just a reminder.
Symptomatic.
So the parasites proved to be effective. What about the second test?
Also supposedly a success. The Pashtun village was the target. However, the original aim was to obtain samples of the infected. In this, they failed.
And the village?
The Soviets enacted a standard scorched earth operation.
That must have been the village where Malak lived.
Yep.
Before being held captive at Lamahate Palace.
Yeah, Lamak, or Malak was that guy.
Think on it. The details shared with me may have been false. They are madmen who would do anything to cover up the truth.
They certainly seem to like tossing their problems in the fire.
As a boy, Skullface's life went up in flames. Perhaps that is what fuels his fixation with fire.
Your Wolbachia stopped the infection all right, but I still don't get it. How can a few bacteria change males to females? I know they're only bugs, but
it is not such a rare thing in the natural world. Many insects and nematodes are infected with Wolbachia.
But why?
They nest in the cell cytoplasm of the host, even in the egg cells, with the result that the offspring are born infected.
Mother-to-child transmission.
However, Wolbachia cannot nest in sperm because they do not have cytoplasm. So even a successful infection of a male ends after a single generation. This means the Wolbachia must resort to maximizing the population of infected females.
Sounds like an ethnic cleansing campaign on a tiny scale.
Gender change from male to female is their survival tactic.
So more females means more Wolbachia carriers, so it can keep thriving in the following generations.
But the parasites in a human host are supposed to be a mating pair. If there's no male, there'll be no offspring at all. It's killing itself.
Slow down. This tactic is intended for environments where a single male can copulate with multiple females. Originally, the Wolbachia did not infect the vocal cord parasites. I created a mutated strain, modifying the Wolbachia so that it could infect monogamous pairs. The Wolbachia's greatest multiplying tactic, the male-to-female change, worked against itself in the monogamous parasites. Just as you said. Then, I performed repeated selection of Wolbachia strains until I achieved 100% certainty of male-to-female conversion.
Creating female-female pairs, unable to reproduce.
And you say the Wolbachia affects the host of the host, that is, us, cutting off our means to reproduce?
It is almost certain. Of course, we will not turn female.
Shucks.
After all, mammals possess no natural gender-changing function. But some Wolbachia strains can cause cytoplasmic incompatibility in the host.
Is that some cell deformity?
Put simply, it means the altered sperm of infected males kill the female's egg on contact.
And that's happened to us?
Yes. And yet, what occurs in humans is not just simple CI. To date, there are no cases of Wolbachia affecting humans. The fact that this strain causes this effect, is it the vocal cord parasite's affinity with humans? I do not know enough to say for sure.
So the parasite warps the host. Reminds me what Skullface said.
It is the way of all organisms to create their own optimal environment. Just look at you and this base. Organisms that cannot do this are doomed to extinction. The difference with parasites is that their environment is another organism. That creates a connection between life and life. Parasitism, symbiosis, or death. In this way, the host too is challenged to adapt.
Okay, God, this is going much later than they usually do. Thanks a lot, cassette tapes.
About this OKB-0 Emmerich was talking about.
That's where I'm heading next.
Location and features match
Well,
the
next
city
stream.
in the mountains northeast of the Soviet base camp. Built during the time of Alexander the Great, it was left in ruins following one of Genghis Khan's campaigns. Its occupants changed time and again due to war, and it was expanded on more than one occasion. Ultimately, it fell into the hands of the Soviet philosophers. The Soviet army was using it as the headquarters of its Afghan invasion force. But it would seem that Skullface's connection with the philosophers gave him license to develop Sahelanthropus there. And that's what Emmerich was doing at the place, before he got the axe. But OKB is a designation the Soviets use for weapon design bureaus. There's no way they'd have one of those in Afghanistan. And in principle, the numbers that follow OKB are always integers above 1. There is no 0. Perhaps this was a secret facility of the Soviet and Chinese philosophers dating back prior to World War II. Though it's more likely Skullface just picked a fake name that more or less fit the Soviets' pattern. He doesn't go there often, but he sure as hell won't miss this. They use the heliport on top of the tower for his visits. Start by heading for the heliport. Then wait for your chance to make contact with Skullface.
Make contact, he says.
It seems Sahelanthropus' armor is made from depleted uranium. That offers some serious protection. The U.S. military is planning on using it for its main battle tanks, too. Maybe that's where Emmerich got the technology.
Uranium? They're using nuclear fuel for armor now?
No. What they use for nuclear fuel is uranium-235, which is extracted from natural uranium. Depleted uranium is a byproduct of that process. Sort of like the leftovers, I guess. The garbage. Uranium-235 makes up 0.72% of natural uranium, whereas depleted uranium contains only 0.2%.
What are the benefits of using it for armor?
It's a pretty short list. Uranium's a heavy metal, like lead, meaning it can hold a greater amount of kinetic energy. But it also boasts a hardness closer to tungsten. That makes it an ideal material to use for, say, armor-piercing ammunition penetrators. But it's not the best choice for armor. Its volume is less than that of ceramics, but for an equal weight, you could end up with less protection.
So why use it then?
According to Emmerich, it came down to him being unable to source ceramics technology from a manufacturer. Plus, given that it's an upright walking vehicle, he wanted to reduce the bulk of certain areas. Despite all that, depleted uranium still makes for some tough armor. And Emmerich says it's been proven in live fire tests. It stops most Soviet tank shells.
Okay, that one was nice and short, thank God. Okay, metallic archaea.
Metallic archaea.
Volcanic craters spewing sulfur. Water hot enough to boil your skin off. Ocean depths of 800 plus atmospheres. Wastelands radioactive enough to kill you where you stand. There are groups of organisms that survive despite. No. Because of living in such environments.
I've heard about them. Extremo... something.
Extremophiles. By selecting certain species, then subculturing and repeatedly modifying them, I created a metallic offspring of pure archaea. They subsist on metals rather than organic matter.
And some of them even consume uranium?
Yes. Uranium enrichment archaea metabolize only uranium-235. As a result, they produce weapons-grade enriched uranium.
How is that possible?
Consider how plants fractionate carbon isotopes when they conduct photosynthesis. Nature possesses abilities beyond our imagination.
So, it was archaea that brought down your chopper?
Corrosive archaea, yes. They oxidize metals, feeding off the energy in the electrons they receive. What became of the wreckage?
We had the R&D team retrieve samples for study in airtight plastic containers, of course.
Prudent. We shall extract archaea from it in good time. They should help you fight back against Blagana.
Any chance we could start now? It doesn't have to be a lot. I might just have another use for them.
If it's only a small amount you need.
That's fine. I'll get the R&D team to assist. Let's go.
And that small amount is what he used to interrogate Huey.
Was previously suspected of developing nuclear weapons. It already had a conspicuous presence at the UN because of apartheid and its armed expansionism. But when neighboring Angola and Mozambique became socialist countries in '74, South Africa felt hounded into a corner. So it accelerated its nuclear program to protect itself. 3 years later, the Soviets discovered a test facility. And 2 years after that, an American satellite observed a flash in the southern Indian Ocean. It said this was South Africa conducting a nuclear test with the help of a certain ally. Skullface used the situation in South Africa to get this ally to lend a hand. They both wanted nukes, so it was a mutually beneficial relationship. On the surface, anyway.
I figure South Africa started getting serious about nuclear weapons production in '75. In '74, the government was still able to get by with bluffing that it had a nuclear arsenal. But the year after, word spread that an independent armed group in the Caribbean was crushed by Cypher for possessing a WMD. That's right, boss. What happened to you and your men was the reason South Africa decided to push ahead with nuclear development. A force independent of any country getting its hands on a nuke. That was a threat to the existence of countries everywhere. It wasn't just South Africa. Your presence pushed a lot of countries to get nukes. The world was scared of you. You were a threat to more than just the Cold War. If nations are gears in a machine, you had the power to smash them loose and watch the whole world grind to a halt.
So, if you didn't pick up on it with the metallic archaea thing, they basically just rust away and just corrode metals. So that's what happened to the chopper when we ran into that big cloud. I'm pretty sure it was a cloud of metallic archaea, and it just ate up the chopper, making it crash. And also, you might have seen that there were, like, tanks on the field that were just, like, completely rusted and dead. So it was the metallic archaea. And that small amount that Ocelot was asking for was an amount that he could use in that interrogation of Huey that we saw during this stream, where he put like a little bit on his glasses and the chair, and he was basically just using it to threaten him by saying, you know, this eats away metal, look what it did to your glasses, and I can do this to your legs. So, yeah. Okay. God, we might hit 10 o'clock. This might be one of the longest streams I've done because of this bullshit. Okay, there's only one more, thank God. Took a while to start, it was weird.
His own design. It's bionics technology, a product of the U.S. military's failed attempt to develop a powered exoskeleton. All the wearer has to do is apply a little force, and the actuators continue the movement in that direction. But his legs are unique. Instead of using a hydraulic mechanism, the actuators run off metallic archaea. That increases the actuator's reaction speed and also enables him to lock and release the joints at will. The legs are a nifty little gadget, but they have two clear weaknesses. First, they're dependent on external power, maybe because he built them knowing he couldn't leave his lab. There's no internal battery. That's why they won't work if they aren't plugged in. Second, and this is more than just a weakness, the legs are directly connected to his bones. Could be to minimize signal loss and the order's output to the legs and the drive response from them. Either way, Emmerich has used bolts to attach load-bearing parts directly to his femurs, probably by mimicking surgical treatment for compound fractures and the like. But the end result is those legs and his body are fused together. And that appears to be how he's able to move them so precisely. But that also means that any shock to the legs would be delivered right to his bones by way of those bolts. The same is true if he encounters the corrosive metallic archaea. If the corrosive archaea ate into the exposed bolts, they'd reach the endoskeleton parts and eat through them too in the blink of an eye. The doctor's bones are full of holes to accommodate all the bolts. They're like sponges. If he were to lose the reinforcing parts, even the tiniest bit of force or weight would snap his bones. So when I dangled those corrosive metallic archaea in front of him, he realized straight away what would happen. Life wouldn't be worth living if he lost those legs of his. I'd bet that is what the doctor fears the most. I just helped him imagine what it would be like. Thanks to that, I got the information we needed without either of us getting hurt. You know how he is. He's probably already over the shock. The better you know your adversary, the easier it is for you to get information from them. And vice versa.
Roger.
Okay, Jesus Christ, that was a lot.
This is B-Quad. Arriving shortly at LZ.
But, that'll be the end of the stream. Unless they want to tell me some shit inside the chopper, which I guess I'll find out. Hey. Alright, I'll just see if they have anything to say to me in the chopper. If they do, I'll listen to it, and if they don't, I'll do my outro and whatnot. Okay, doesn't look like they have to say anything. Which means that is the end of tonight's stream. This went on really long. Almost a full 3 hours. And it's because of the goddamn cassette tapes, and I guess the missions took a while. But yeah. So, it didn't seem like anybody joined in during this, so I'll just refer to this as if it's being archived, I guess. But, fuck it, whatever. I don't know what I'm doing right now. But, thanks to anybody who came watching this archived. If you could, you know, follow me on Twitch, those help out a lot. And when you follow me, make sure to turn on email notifications so you know when I go online. So, yeah. Sorry I haven't been able to stream that often recently. You know, holiday shit. My birthday and Thanksgiving are incredibly close together, so that happened. And I might not be able to do a stream tomorrow because I'm going to have company be coming over. It's a friend of mine who I haven't seen in a long time, and I want to hang out with him. So I might not be able to do a stream tomorrow or the next day. But yeah, for anyone who's watching this archived, I stream every day at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, except for Mondays, or if anything comes up, like it did this last week with stuff. And I usually, more often than not, I'll make a post about it on my Facebook or my Twitter about schedule changes, or if there's not a stream at all. And speaking of that, if you scroll down below my stream window on Twitch, I have a section now labeled social media, not links, thanks to Tommy's efforts. He made the new panel art for me. Big thanks to him. So yeah, if you go down to social media, you'll find links to my Facebook and Twitter, where I post the updates about schedule changes and whatnot. So make sure to like and follow those so you can keep up to date on that. There's also a link to my YouTube, where I archive all of my broadcasts, because Twitch removes them after a while, so I just export them to YouTube so you can catch up on any streams that you missed. And there's also a link to my SoundCloud if you want to check out my music. And with that, I'd say that's it. Alright, yeah. That'll be all from me. See you, peeps. I'm out.